What if somewhere in the universe there already exists a world similar to Earth? A world where there might be life, or where humanity might end up someday. But before dreaming about distant planets, we need to understand our closest neighbors. Saturn with its incredible rings and storms, Venus, a scorching trap, and mysterious exoplanets that take thousands of years for light to reach. We know an amazing amount about them and at the same time almost nothing. In this episode, the most astonishing facts, real space missions, and mysteries that still remain unsolved.
Among the planets of the solar system, there is one that stands out especially among the familiar celestial bodies. This is Saturn, the ringed gas giant, whose rocky rings can be seen even from Earth. Although the distance between it and the misty giant is 1.2 billion kilometers. Hello, subscribe. The giant planet amazes not only with its rings. Despite its enormous size, its density is lower than that of water, which leads scientists to use a vivid comparison. Saturn could float in a giant pool. At one of the celestial body's poles, a strange polygonal hurricane rages, the origin and shape of which cause much debate. This and much more had long required more detailed study, so in 1997 an expedition was launched, the results of which later shed light on many mysteries of the distant planet. The Cassini spacecraft, with the Huygens probe on board, reached its destination only by 2004. The spacecraft was literally packed with scientific research equipment. Among other things, Cassini was equipped with several types of spectrometers, a camera, a magnetometer, and radars. In addition, the spacecraft was equipped with several types of computers and a nuclear thermoelectric generator, since the planet's significant distance from the Sun did not allow the probe to use the star's light as an energy source. How did Cassini's flight go? Step by step. At first, it accelerated with the help of Venus, and it did this twice, in 1998 and 1999. Then the spacecraft passed by Earth at a speed of 19 kilometers per second and left the nearby region, heading toward Jupiter and Saturn. Upon arrival, Cassini became the first artificial satellite of the planet, and the mission lasted a long 20 years, ending in September 2017. What did the spacecraft see and manage to transmit during this time? Surprisingly, not in 1982, when work on the spacecraft began, nor during its launch from Cape Canaveral in 1997, nor even after Cassini became a satellite in 2004. No one suspected that the mission would last so long. Initially, it was planned that the spacecraft would stay near Saturn until 2008, but the probe exceeded the wildest expectations. Moreover, the decision to end the project was made solely due to a simple lack of fuel. Almost everything we know about the planet now is thanks to Cassini. The first thing the spacecraft did was confirm one of the principles of the general theory of relativity. The results were a delay in the signal and a frequency shift during the period when the probe was on the other side of the Sun. What other interesting details did the legendary spacecraft uncover? Spokes in the rings? This phenomenon was first reported by the Voyager probe. Cassini fully confirmed the information. The spokes look like ghostly streaks, perpendicular to the layers of the rings. According to the laws of celestial mechanics, formations made up of tiny dust particles should quickly break apart, but the spokes still exist. Perhaps they are related to the planet's powerful magnetic field. It seems that the appearance of these transverse bands is triggered by some massive object located on the planet. But there can't be any mountains on Saturn since the celestial body has no solid surface. So the question remains open. Storm on the giant. The next phenomenon studied closely is the hellish storm raging at Saturn's north pole. The appearance of a giant perfectly shaped hexagon with a diameter of 25,000 kilometers cannot be explained by anything. The spacecraft transmitted information about the characteristics of the storm to Earth. It extends 100 kilometers into the planet, and the winds here blow at speeds of up to 1,500 kilometers per hour. Interest in this structure increased after Cassini transmitted its image, although before that, the unusual hurricane was also noticed by Voyager. The equipment of the late 20th century did not allow the vortices to be shown in sufficient resolution. Therefore, it was only now that it became possible to examine it fully. It is remarkable that the walls of the storm are perfectly smooth. In 2013, an even higher quality image was obtained of the stable structure raging at Saturn's pole. The image was taken from a distance of 1.2 million kilometers. The nuances of rotation. Before Cassini arrived in Saturn's orbit, the length of a day on the planet was only approximately known, but the spacecraft settled it definitively. Now we know that a Saturnian day lasts 10 hours, 45 minutes, and 45 seconds. That's 6 minutes longer than previously thought. Epic polar auroras. Phenomena of such scale have been recorded for the first time in the solar system. The auroras encircle the poles of the giant planet and appear as dazzling continuous ovals. Cassini also discovered a remarkable fact. The greater the pressure of the solar wind, the more distinct the neon rings become. Saturnian lightning. In addition to auroras, the spacecraft detected very powerful lightning discharges on Saturn. They were observed especially often during storms. After all, besides the hexagon, hurricanes occur everywhere in the turbulent atmosphere of the giant. One, for instance, resembles a wisp of cigarette smoke from afar. The spacecraft also discovered a short-lived planetary-scale storm near Saturn's equator, a vortex 5,000 kilometers in diameter. Myriads of rings. One of Cassini's many tasks was to study the mysterious bands around the planet's waste, which have fascinated scientists since the time of Galileo. It was finally determined that Saturn's rings are a combination of several different formations, made up of icy, rocky, and dusty particles. At the moment, the photographs of Saturn's rings provided by Cassini from various angles are the most detailed and significant. Here's a photograph showing the structure of the rings from a distance of 1.8 million kilometers. You can see color irregularities and differences in density in it. And in this image, the wave-like nature of Saturn's rings is clearly visible. Of course, the information presented does not fully explain the nature of the phenomenon, but it does shed light on the appearance and composition of the ring formations. The mission was also accompanied by an interesting discovery. Cassini discovered another ring, which is the farthest from the planet. The Phoebe ring, with a diameter of about 13 million kilometers, was discovered by the spacecraft in 2009. Saturn is a planet that holds many secrets, but thanks to Cassini, many of them have been partially solved. This is how the orbital spacecraft saw the planet on January 2nd, 2010, using a narrow-angle camera from a distance of 2.8 million kilometers. At the time the image was taken, the probe had about 7 years left to live. The death of the spacecraft was carefully planned, although it could have perished at the very beginning of the mission, when it flew between the rings of the giant planet. From Earth, they seem smooth, but in reality, if even one fragment, the size of a house, had crashed into Cassini, which was flying at a speed of 110 kilometers per hour, the $3.4 billion mission would have ended that very second. Fortunately, the probe was destined to operate as an artificial satellite for much longer. The grand finale came in 2017. Before it was forever lost in Saturn's deadly atmosphere, Cassini flew 22 times between the inner ring and the planet, which allowed it to capture unique images. What was the last photo taken by the hard-working kamikaze probe? What did Cassini see before plunging into the abyss? Before the complete loss of signal, which happened on September 15, 2017, at 14:55, the spacecraft captured this. This is how one of the most significant missions in the history of space exploration ended. But we hope it won't be the last, because the story isn't over yet. Have you ever noticed an unusually bright star above the horizon in the evening? If so, it's quite possible that you wondered, what is it? The answer may surprise you. After all, it's not a star at all, but a planet. No, you heard that right. This celestial object is none other than the planet closest to Earth, namely Venus. Yes, the very one named after the ancient Roman goddess of beauty. I think the Romans got a bit carried away with that. It turns out you can see it just by stepping outside. And if you had even a weak telescope, then by looking at Venus through it, you would see. But you wouldn't see anything because the planet is surrounded by an impenetrable layer of clouds. By the way, for a long time it was assumed that behind these clouds, life was thriving just like on Earth. But in 1970, the Venera 7 probe landed on the surface of the supposed beauty for the first time, and its cameras captured a completely different picture. The first evidence that the planet turned out to be not as friendly as one might have assumed is the fact that the probe survived on the surface for no more than 20 minutes. Earlier, it sent data on Venus's atmosphere to Earth for 33 minutes. Without exaggeration, Venus can truly be called an actual outpost of hell in the solar system. The temperature on its surface can reach 460 degrees Celsius. But this planet can surprise you not only with its truly scorching conditions. For example, Venus does not have a magnetic field, and it rotates in the opposite direction to most planets. The only other planet like that is unfortunate Uranus, which lies on its side. But that's not all. One rotation around its own axis takes 243 Earth days. At the same time, a year lasts only 225 of those same Earth days. Under such conditions, the total length of day and night combined is 117 full Earth days. That's definitely enough time to get some sleep. The planet doesn't have any moons. However, it's believed that it used to have one. So where did the Venusian moon go? Nowhere. It's nearby. According to the observations of many astronomers, it can be concluded that Mercury used to be a satellite of Venus. Now both planets are lonely and adrift. But the dry physical characteristics of a celestial body usually do not interest the average person on Earth. People love to let their imaginations run wild and picture themselves living in an alien world. One thing can be said for sure about the latter. The climate of Venus is definitely deadly for us. No matter how you look at it, to get an idea of the planet, you still have to turn to the official facts. The size of the fiery neighbor is only slightly smaller than Earth, 95% of our planet's diameter, and its mass is 81% of Earth's. So its gravity is almost the same as what we feel on Earth. So if a person had to step onto its molten surface, they definitely wouldn't feel the lightness of Mars. By the way, if Elon Musk suddenly decided to drill a tunnel through Venus, it would take you no more than 3 to 4 days to get through it. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is the same as at a depth of 900 meters in the ocean. It even puts pressure on carbon dioxide, turning it into a strange dual-natured substance, a supercritical fluid. It was this monstrous natural pressure that crushed the Venera 4 probe when it was 28 kilometers above the planet's surface. Something like this happened because of a flaw in the machine's design. The actual pressure on this extreme planet is 93 atmospheres, something the designers of the probe couldn't have imagined even in their worst nightmares. Later on, when designing and equipping Venus probes, this parameter is always taken into account. The world of Venus is a place of intense heat, where lead can easily melt, combined with the suffocating greenhouse effect caused by an incredibly thick cloud layer made mostly of carbon dioxide and nitrogen, along with traces of sulfuric acid. The planet's atmosphere is caught in a global hurricane that has been swirling nonstop for millions of years. Wind speeds at the edge of the clouds reach 140 meters per second, but near the surface, the movement of atmospheric currents is almost imperceptible. On Venus, thunderstorms flash and sulfuric rains pour down, but they don't erode the planet's crust. They evaporate before reaching it. On Earth, this phenomenon is called virga. Numerous probes, either flying by or briefly landing on Venus, have allowed us to catch a glimpse of this hell. Conventionally, the planet's surface is divided into two continents, Ishtar Terra and Aphrodite Terra. The Magellan probe, having barely managed to break through the dense, impenetrable clouds, was able to capture views of Venus. In the photos, you can see the channels of lava rivers, many ancient volcanoes, hundreds of craters, and numerous ridges, including the largest mountain range on Venus, Maxwell Montes, which is about 11 kilometers high. For comparison, the highest point on Earth is Mount Everest, which is just under 9 kilometers high. By the way, this is the coldest place on the planet. The temperature here never rises above 380 degrees, and the atmospheric pressure at the summit is twice as low as it is at the base. Isn't it a resort compared to the inferno lying at the foot? The Venera 13 probe gave Earthlings the first color panoramic photograph of the planet, showing rusty, grainy soil and fragments of dark brown basalt rock formations. By the way, quite a lot, no more than 500 million years. The probe spent the longest time on the planet, 2 hours and 7 minutes, transmitting fascinating images and even unexpected sounds like peals of thunder and strange pops, until Venus's harsh climate cut off the transmission. But the main question that interests the people of Earth is it possible to settle on Venus? In other words, to terraform it, or to colonize our untamed neighbor by some other means? Let's try. Let's get back to the competitors. Here's an interesting nuance. The vast atmosphere of Venus consists of many layers with conditions that differ significantly. Among them, the tropopause is especially interesting for us. According to probe studies, this 15-kilometer region is characterized by comfortable temperatures, ranging from plus 20 to plus 37 degrees Celsius, and pressure similar to that on Earth. This is where they plan to create a flying colony, consisting of huge ships equipped with gigantic spheres covered with a protective Teflon layer and filled with Earth's air. A natural shield from solar radiation is also present in this location. Venus has an ozone layer. But this exotic project is not the only one. It is also proposed to install special sunshades at the Lagrange point between the Sun and Venus, which would significantly lower the temperature on the planet, making it suitable for life. To supply the scorching neighbor with water, it is planned to organize a massive bombardment of its surface with comets and asteroids. However, for this, either a very large number of them will be needed or just a few, but very large ones. Next would come plans to deliver specific algae to the Venusian atmosphere, particularly to the tropopause zone, so they can reproduce there. Overall, the appeal of exploring Venus exists for several reasons. First of all, in terms of proximity, because it's the closest planet to us. Another appealing factor is its similarity in weight, size, and gravity. Moreover, if it weren't for the thick layer of clouds, the temperature on the planet's surface wouldn't be so unbearable. At the same time, Venus has almost no water, and the radiation level is significantly increased due to the lack of a magnetic field and its proximity to the Sun. Therefore, its colonization is a difficult and unlikely endeavor. But as they say, there's no harm in dreaming and making plans. especially since Earth will cease to exist sooner or later. The search for life on other planets has recently turned not just into an astronomical trend, but into a real obsession. At some point, scientists realized that there are a lot of objects in the universe that are similar to Earth. That's why our cozy home has long lost its exclusivity. Gradually, terms like exoplanets and super-Earths became common. The first are celestial bodies located near stars and orbiting around them. And the second are huge rocky spheres with a mass of up to 10 Earth masses, but still not reaching the scale of gas giants. So, does that mean that life could potentially develop on each of these objects? Theoretically, yes, but only if many important factors align. Currently, there are no confirmed planets, and the data hasn't been updated recently. That's just how it is. But among them, Kepler 452b stands out in particular. A strange and very distant world.
Система желтого карлика при...
The Show Tony Show. Maybe you could say so. We could say, but not like that. We could say, but we can't really say it like that. But we can say that it's not like that. But we can't say that. Its star is practically a twin of the Sun, and the mentioned planet is located in the habitable zone of its star. On this basis, scientists began to speculate and deepen their research as much as possible, and the media even called Kepler 452b Earth 2. Let's turn to the physical characteristics of the object collected by astrophysicists. It is known that the exoplanet belongs to the category of super-Earths. Kepler 452b is 60% larger and 5 times heavier than Earth. It is 1.5 billion years older than our planet. That's why its parent star will leave the main sequence faster than the Sun in about 3.5 billion years. To put it in simple terms, this means that Kepler 452b will turn into a scorched desert much earlier than Earth. After all, its star will soon become an enormous red giant, engulfing the planets orbiting near it. But since this scenario will not happen anytime soon by human standards, nothing stops us from considering Kepler 452b as a potential candidate for habitability and even the possibility of life. When it comes to colonization, the first thing that could hinder us is the enormous distance to the planet. With today's technological capabilities, traveling to the constellation Cygnus would take so long that no one would make it there alive. To give you a better idea, it's worth explaining that right now our probes reach Pluto in about 9 years. If we were to travel to Kepler 452b at the same speed, we'd have to leave today even before breakfast, and the journey would take at least 25 million years. Obviously, that's an unimaginable amount of time, and there's no talk yet of visiting it, even with interplanetary stations. But astronomers continue to study the super-Earth in the constellation Cygnus and create primitive maps of its surface. What would we see if we landed on Kepler 452b right now? First of all, it is believed that the planet has high volcanic activity and the predominant terrain is rocky. Gravity here is twice as strong as on Earth, so it would be difficult for a person to adapt to such a significant burden. But over time, a generation would be born that would feel perfectly comfortable in this mysterious world. A year on the planet is similar to ours and lasts almost 385 days. If active forces haven't turned the object with one side facing the star, then it's possible that it has seasons. Temperature is an important factor in determining whether the planet is suitable for us or not. So, on the surface of Kepler 452b, it's about 2 degrees Celsius. And what about the possibility of life on Kepler 452b?
Известно, что
The object receives enough energy to support photosynthesis, of course, if there is vegetation. There are two factors that cloud this optimistic outlook. The insolation is twice as high as on Earth, and there is a possible greenhouse effect. If it is present, then most likely there will be Venus-like conditions, which absolutely rule out both the emergence of life and the presence of humans on the planet. Therefore, even a probe would not be able to survive for long, remain in its deadly atmosphere, or withstand the insane pressure. Whether this is true or not remains to be seen. To understand how similar the planet is to Earth, astrobiologists, planetary scientists, chemists, and astronomers have established a special index. It is applied to planets and moons, taking into account several key indicators: the mass and size of the object, its density, the distance to the star, and the temperature range. For example, our Moon and Mercury are poor matches for Earth since they lack an atmosphere and experience extreme temperature fluctuations. But Kepler 452b is in 6th place on this list. Its presence in the Goldilocks zone suggests that the planet may have oceans, rivers, and lakes. In other words, there is water there, the basis of life. However, some astrophysicists suggest that liquid is steadily evaporating from the surface of Kepler 452b due to the aging of its parent star, which is increasing in size and brightness. Unfortunately, the incredible distance of the object does not allow for more precise conclusions. In addition to the Earth Similarity Index, another parameter related to the habitability of celestial bodies has been developed. This table also includes bodies from the solar system, with Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, ranking first with a score of 0.64. This honorary title was given to this moon because of the diversity of organic compounds and the suspicion of microbial activity. The Planetary Habitability Index for Kepler 452b has not yet been determined due to a lack of information. The PHI states that the type of surface, terrain, and the amount of stellar energy received are taken into account, and Kepler 452b is fine in these respects, as well as the presence of an atmosphere, magnetic field, and water. Scientists remain ignorant about the last three parameters, but close observations continue, and the scientific community's attention to Earth too does not wane. It is believed that there is an atmospheric layer on the celestial body, but how suitable it is for the emergence of life is unknown. In the table of potentially habitable planets, Kepler 452b is in 8th place. But you shouldn't imagine flying white-bellied whales clinging to purple lianas with their fins, or cheerful alien gibbons eating jellyfish-like mushrooms. It's probably much more prosaic. I'd like to believe that there's at least bacterial life on this planet. Finding its traces would be a real victory. While the world awaits news from Kepler 452b, let's use our imagination and picture what the conditions might be like on the distant Earth U. Try to imagine yourself on this planet and write to us about your guesses. And of course, don't forget to like, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell. That way, we'll know you enjoyed the video and we'll prioritize sending you updates about our channel.